Hello and welcome to chapter 13 of our HTML and CSS web development course. In chapter 13 we are going to talk about boxes. Okay, what boxes are, okay, how to control boxes, and then how to put on margins, borders and padding around boxes, and how to display and how to hide boxes. Also, under this particular chapter, we will treat each element as if it lives in its own box, just like we explained in HTML. You can set several properties that affect the appearance of these boxes. One is controlling the dimension, as in the width and the height, create borders around boxes, set margins and paddings, and then show and hide the box. Now, the first thing you're going to look at is the width and then the height. Okay, the width and then the height, that's the dimension of the box. By default, a box is sized such that it can hold its content within it. So as the content increases, the box is also increasing. Now, there could be a situation whereby you would like to set your own dimensions for the box. You didn't want it to go by default. You would like to give your own attribute to such boxes. Okay, now you can do this thing by using pixels, percentages or ems. Traditionally, pixels have been the most popular method because they allow designers to accurately control their size. Now, when percentages are used, the size of the box is relative to the size of the browser. And then if the box is encased within another box, it is a percentage of the size of the containing box. Okay, so the size of its mother box. When you use ems, the size of the box is based on the size of the text within it. Designers have recently started to use percentages and ems more for measurement as they try to create designs that are flexible across devices which have different size screens. I'm going to show you an example. After this slide, you are going to see a container, okay, a containing element used which is 300 pixels wide by 300 pixels high. That means the width and the height are all 300 pixels. Inside of this is a paragraph that is 75% of the width and the height of the containing element. So you see the width 75%, the height also 75%. This means that the size of the paragraph is 225 pixels wide by 225 pixels high. Now this is the example I want to show you. See a div, what is the div here and then the div there, and there's a paragraph within this div and it has these characteristics. Okay, there is no class of a box here, so this box can go off. The height is 300, the width also 300. It has a background color, this is like an ash. Whilst the paragraph also has a height of 75. This paragraph is found within the box and a width of also 75%. It also has a color. Okay, it also has its own color. So this is a paragraph found within the box. Let me show you using my text editor. Now in my text editor I've commented those. Let me comment it out. Alright, so this is the CSS, okay, and this is the HTML, which is from the div area. So this is, let me try and get there. That is it here, this portion. This will be in a box with a particular color, and then the paragraph within it has been given a width and height of 75% each. Okay, so let me save this Okay, let me save this and then go to my CSS, save the last work I did, and then go straight into my browser. Okay, so I can actually see it here. This is the div, so this is the biggest box, and the biggest box is 300 by 300, whilst the inner box, which is the paragraph within the div, is 75% with 75% height. So this is by setting your own dimensions, okay, to it without going strictly to the default dimensions. We will also look at limiting width. That is the mid width, the minimum width, and the maximum width. Okay, some page will expand and shrink to fit the size depending on the user's screen resolution. In such designs, a minimum width property is set. Okay, it's set so that it can be displayed on the browser window if the window or the screen size is small. And the maximum width also property will what be set so that when you have a higher device with a larger screen, it could still fit in to stretch on the browser window also. These are very helpful properties to ensure that content of pages are what clearly are legible for everyone to read, whether you are using it on a smaller screen or on a larger screen. I'm also going to give you an example of a maximum width, okay, to ensure that lines of text do not appear too wide within a big browser window. And then you can what also use a minimum width property to make sure they do not what appear too narrow because of the minimum width that has been set to it. Okay, I'm going to give you an example in my browser so that you can see what actually occurs, okay, when I increase or decrease the size of my window. Okay, this is the example we are going to use. Okay, this is the example we are going to use. There's a table row, there's table data, and this has an image. Apart from the image, it also has a description. It also has another data, which is what, let's say the price. So all these three are on a row. This is in the HTML code, and this is the CSS code as well. Let's go into our text editor, so I'll explain the code and I'll try to reduce the size of my screen to see how it's actually going to appear. This is my HTML code. Okay, so the table row has three data. So this first data, second data, which is the description, and the third data, and then the row will end. Okay, so that is for this. I'm going to the CSS to I have to take this. There's no class called description, and then let me save this file. We save it, the CSS. So what I've done is that I've given my table data a minimum width of what 450 and a maximum of 650, and I've aligned the text to the left. I've given it a padding and a margin. So I'm going to my browser and I'm going to refresh. Now this is what is happening. This is my image, this is the description, and this is the price area. Let me reduce my browser window so that we can actually see what is happening when we reduce it. Now you can see that it is actually showing clearly. It's actually showing clearly the full text. You can actually see what is happening. It is shrinking the size so that it will actually show the minimum. Okay, so it's still showing everything clearly. This is the price, that's the description, this is the image, and then when I widen it also, is going to take the width that has been specified for it. Now, after limiting the width, let's talk about limiting the height. So you see minimum height and then maximum height. You may also would like to what? Limit your height, okay? Limit your height and then limit the paragraphs within that particular box. Okay, you do this thing by indicating the minimum and the minimum properties. I will show you an example, okay, of these properties in action. You see, to show the what happens within the content of the box, okay, and if a box is too big or it's not big enough to hold the content, the particular content expands outside the box. Okay, it will look very messy. It wouldn't look very nice at all. To control what happens when there is enough space of the content of the box, you can also use overflow property. But for now, we are talking about the minimum height and the minimum and the maximum height. Okay, so if the content is more than the box, it's going to go outside the box. Okay, let me show you an example. Now this is the example. I'm going straight into my text editor to show you how it's going to work. Okay, this is the h2, which is what? H2, and the paragraph. This is the paragraph, another paragraph, another paragraph. This is another h2, another h2. The width is going to be 400 pixels, font size is going to be 90 degrees, and line height is going to be 1.2 m. This is the color of the heading h2, okay, and then this is the border button, okay, and the paragraph also have a minimum and a maximum height of 30. Let me show you this in my text edit. Now this is the code for the HTML from this end, from this place to that place. That is the heading and then the paragraph in question. Let me go to my CSS and then type in the CSS code. Now the CSS code starts from this place, okay. It says that the second level heading and paragraph should what? Have a width of 400 pixels, like I explained. Font size should be 90%, and then the line height should be 1.2 m. H2, the color should be blue, and also the border bottom should be what? Should be 1 pixel with a solid color of blue. The paragraph should have a minimum height of 10 and the maximum of 30. In this case, we are hoping that some of the content will exceed the box. Okay, so let me just save this and then refresh. Alright, so this is what we actually see working. So this is the box. Let me do one more thing in there. I've disabled some of the properties I've given earlier. Yes, so this one, let me enable this code. Let me save it, refresh the page. Okay, you are going to see that the text that is within the div, this place, you can actually see that there's another text that is what? That has exceeded the particular width you have given the box. Okay, the particular div width and height you have given the box, so it has gone outside the particular box given. In this example, to the second paragraph, so this has also exceeded its boundaries. Okay, and the last one has also exceeded its boundaries. This text has also exceeded the boundaries. This is one of the challenges when you are setting the height, okay, minimum height and the minimum width, because some of the tests might what exceed the box within which it should be contained. Like I explained earlier, when you find yourself in a situation whereby your content has crossed the width or the height you have set for it, what you must do is that you must use the overflow property. Now, this tells the browser what to do if the content contained within the box is larger, okay, and it also has two values. One is the hidden and the other is scroll. The hidden hides any extra content that is not within the box, so it doesn't actually show and make your work messy, while the scroll, okay, adds a scroll bar to the box so that it makes it scrollable and it falls within the box, so the older content will go up while you scroll down the newer content, okay. That is what the scroll does, and that's what the heading also does. I'm going to show you two different boxes, okay, that the contents have what span beyond the height and the width we have given it, okay. You are going to see the overflow property actually in use with the heading, and also going to see the overflow property work with the value of scroll, okay. The overview, okay, the overflow property is particularly handy because some browsers allow users to adjust the size of the text to appear as large or as small as they want. If the text is set to too large, then the page can become an unreadable mess. Hiding the overflow on such boxes helps items overlapping on the page. I'm going to show you this. This is the example we are going to use in overflow. Two examples actually. The first one, which is the first paragraph, will have a class of 1, which is this. It is going to be hidden, so the other part, okay, will not be showing. And the next part is going to have a scroll. This is going to be scrollable so that you can actually see the missing content. Okay, let's go to our text editor and practicalize this. Now, this is my text editor. I'm going to give the first paragraph a class, okay, a class called 1, and then I'm coming to the second paragraph, also give it a class, okay, and I'll give it 2. So I'll save this and I'll go straight to my CSS and then give my rule on what should happen. Let me comment out the width and then the height. Okay, let me leave it and then add this. So this paragraph with a class of 1 should be hidden, okay, and paragraph with a class of 2 should scroll. Let me save this file, Ctrl S, come to my browser and then refresh. Look at what is happening here. You can see this is now showing the hidden part. If you check the previous example, this part was showing, making the work messy. But in the second one, which I'm using the hidden, okay, the overflow property of hidden, those part is not showing, and then this part also has the scroll, okay, it has the scroll version, so you can actually see the hidden part of the text. So that's the scroll bar, clearly indicating that there are some missing text which must show for me to be able to to be able to read. So that's the scrolling working here, and also the heading working there. Now, after discussing the overflow, let's talk about the border, margin, and padding. Every box has three available properties, okay, that is used to adjust the appearance of the box. One is the border, okay, and then the other is a margin, and the last one is a padding. The padding is the space between the border of a box and any content contained within it, okay. Padding can increase the readability of its content because it creates a space from the border of the box and then the content within the box. Now, when we talk about margin, when we say a margin sits outside the edge of the border, whilst padding is contained within, okay, the margin is what? Outside the border, okay. It's used to separate or to set a weight of a margin to create a gap between two different borders. So let's say there are 3 or 4 boxes, okay, and you want to put a space between the first box and the second box, you use a margin. But if you want to put a space from the edge of the box, okay, to the content within the box, you use a padding. And when we say a border simply is what? It's the edge of one box from another. That's what we call a border. Now, if you specify a particular width for a box, then the borders, margins, and paddings are added to its width and height. To its width and then to its height. Now, white spacing and vertical margin. White spacing and then vertical margin. The padding and margin properties are very helpful in adding space between various items on the page. Like I told you, whilst the margin works at the edge of the border or at the edge of the box, the padding does it within the box. Now, designers refer to the space between this as what? White space. So if you had a border around the box, you will not want the text to touch this border, and it would become harder to read. Imagine you had 2 boxes sitting side by side, okay. You will not necessarily want the boxes to touch the edges of each other, so you like to create a space between these two, and that's what we call the still the white space or the vertical margin. Now, if the bottom of a margin of any box touches the top of another, the browser will render it differently than you might expect. It wouldn't appear that they are different, so the browser wouldn't actually know that they are different boxes because they are touching each other. So you will have to indicate the code or give it a property that will separate one box from the other. Border width. Now, the width of the border, okay, is a property that is used to control the width of the border. The value of this can either be given in pixels, okay, or by using thin, medium, or thick as a value, okay. You are not allowed to use percentages within this property. Either you use a thin, a medium, a thick, or you use pixels. You can control the individual size of borders using 4 separate properties. So you can decide to give the border top width, the border right, the border bottom, and then the border left, okay. The border top, the border right, the border bottom, and the border left width. So that you can use these ones to control all the 4 corners of the box, okay. You can give them separate width, okay, You can give it. So let's say if you see anything like 2112, that means that the top is having 2 pixels, the right is having 1 pixel, the bottom is having 1 pixel, and then the left is having 2 pixels. Okay, this goes clockwise. TRBL, the T meaning top, the R meaning right, the B meaning bottom, and then the L meaning left. So you can actually write the word trouble, TROUBLE, and take out all the vowels within the word trouble. You're going to get what I'm talking about. Now this is an example of the border width. So I'm going to give an example, and I'm going to indicate the width of the border here. So I want to add just one more paragraph, okay, and I'll give it a class of 3. Then I will actually I'll give it these properties in my CSS. The first one, we are giving it 2 pixels, the border width. So this border width 2 pixels is going to cover all other size. We can specify here by giving it thick, and then here we can give it the top should be 1, the right should be 4, the bottom should be 12, and the left should be 4. Okay, let's go straight into our text editor. Now this is our text editor. I've already entered the paragraphs with classes 1, 2, and 3. So at the CSS column, we are going to add the code that is going to explain the border width. Okay, so this will work on paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3. Paragraph with the class of 1, with the class of 2, and with the class of 3. Let me save it and go straight to my browser and refresh. You can see it's working here. Now you can see the borders, and you can see this space. This space is what we call the white space. This a space within 2 different boxes, another one with the 2 different boxes, a space between 2 different boxes. And you can see the margin left here. You can also see the margin left on the right. Okay, you can see this place is very close to the edge. I can see in this example it is a bit wide. Okay, so you can use all these ways of giving the values to the width of your border. Now after the border width, we are also going to check border style. Okay, you can control the style of a border by using the property called border style, border hyphen style. This property can take a lot of values. One of it is solid, which gives a single solid line. You can use dotted, okay, which gives a series of square dots around your border. Okay, so if you have given it 2 pixels, let's say your border is 2 pixels, then the dots are 2 pixels square with a 2 pixels gap between each dot. You can also use dashed lines, so it's going to do short lines. You can also do a double. So in this case, the double is like the double or 2 times what the single the solid is. The solid will give you a single solid line, whilst the double will give you 2 solid lines. Okay, you can also give it a groove, you can also give it reach, you can give it insert, you can give it outset, you can give it hidden or none. We are going to work on this on each one, and this will also fall by giving a border top, a border left, a border right, and a border bottom. You can change the styles of individual borders. Okay, I'm going to show you this in the next example in your text editor. So this is the example we are going to use. We have 8 paragraphs, and each of them is going to take a particular value we are talking about. One will be solid, the other will be dotted, this will be dashed, this will be double, a groove, the ridge, the inset, and then the outset. So let's go into our text editors and do this example. Now in the text editor, I've added all 8 paragraphs with each of the paragraph having a class. Okay, having a class. So I'm going straight to my CSS and then add the rules. So for a paragraph with a class of 1, with a class of 2, so this is solid, this is dotted, this is dashed, double, groove, ridge, inset, and outset. Let me just save it, Control S, and refresh my browser. Okay, you're going to see all 8 different ways of doing that, of doing the border style. Now you can see solid, this is actually the double, this is the dashes or dashed. You can see all this difference of what, of styling the border. Okay, all 8 different. This is the inset, this is the outset, all of them explained in this particular example. Okay, so this is what border style property. Now border color is our next thing we are looking at. Border color. Border color, I told you the spelling of color should be studied carefully. So when we come to the border color, you can specify the color by using the red, green, blue value, is the RGB, or by using the hex code, that is the 6 code preceded by a hash or a pound, or you can use some of the predefined color names in CSS. It is also possible to individually control the colors of the borders by indicating the color of each of the sides of the box. You can also show by using a shorthand, okay, without indicating each side. You just write border color and then you give the colors as stated in this case. So it will take the form of the top, right, bottom, and then the left. Okay, and this one is what, clockwise, top, right, bottom, and left. That's the shorthand. So when you declare border color, dark cyan means dark cyan should be for the top, deep pink should be for the right, dark cyan should be for the bottom, and then deep pink should be for the left. Now this is the example we are going to go through. So if you check the first particular one, border color, one color was given for all other sides, whilst in the second paragraph individual ones were given, each side were given. Okay, so this will take for the top, this will take for the right, this will take for the bottom, and this will take for the left. Let's go into our text editor and do this practice. Now this is my text editor. I've added three more paragraphs. Now the first two has to do with it's going to explain the color, while this is going to explain the shorthand. Okay, that is the paragraph 11. Let me go to my text editor in my CSS, and I've written the code for the border color. This, okay, the border color, this color will take effect round the particular paragraph, whilst the paragraph 10 will take individual colors at individual size. I'm going to write the color or the rule for the the shorthand. That is what I've just added. Let me give their class names to it. Let me give it, so just dot 11. Let me save. Let me refresh my browser. I should see. Let me see what I've saved. My work is not saved, so I have to save it. Control S, and then I'll come and refresh the browser. I should see colors around. Now this is the first one. Okay, the first one. Now padding. The padding property allows you to specify how much space should appear between the content of an element and its border. The value of this property is often specified in pixels. Like I said, we shouldn't use this in percentages. I explained it in my earlier slides. Okay, I also indicated that the box is also wider because of its padding. Okay, the padding, as in the space from the edge of the box to the content. So different values can also be ascribed to each side of the box. So that's padding top, padding right, padding bottom, and padding left, just like we were doing in the other styles. Okay, you can specify. So when you see padding as 10 pixels, 5, 3, and 1, this simply means this is the top, this is the right, this is the bottom, and this is the left. Okay, that is how to apply the padding. And the value of the padding property is not inherited by the child element in the same way that the color value of the font family property is. As for the font family, it does, but in padding it does not inherit. Okay, or the child does not inherit from the parent element. So you need to specify the padding for each of them, whether it is a parent element or a child element. You are supposed to indicate the padding value for each of them. Now this example is going to explain padding. Okay, I'm going to give 2 paragraphs. I'll give one a class, okay, of example, and I'm going to give it a padding of 10 pixels in my text editor. Okay, so in my HTML I've already inserted the 2 paragraphs, this and then that. Okay, so I'll go straight to my CSS. Let me save the HTML. Now in the CSS, this is the property I want to give it. I want to give the paragraph a width of 275, a border of 2 pixels, and a color. Whilst in the paragraph with the example, I'm going to give it a padding of 10 pixels. Okay, a padding of what? 10 pixels. Let me save and then refresh my browser. Okay, so after refreshing my browser, you can actually see this around all my paragraphs. You can see the padding of 10 pixels, and then when I come to the paragraphs down there, you see 10 pixels in each, and I indicated that I'm giving it a width. Okay, the paragraph a width of 275, a border of 2 pixels, but the padding was higher. So you can actually see from my browser that the border is so close. Okay, so close, but my padding is a bit big. So this is the padding, okay, within the box. That's the padding within the box. The next property you're going to look at is the margin. Okay, that's the margin. The margin property controls the gap between boxes, and the value is given in pixels. Okay, you can also use ems or percentages, but it is usually in pixels. Now I've also explained that when one box sits on top of the other, it is difficult for the browser to render it, unless we indicate to the browser that there are spaces, there are margins within these two particular boxes. Now when you are specifying the values too, you can as well do the margin top, the margin right, the margin bottom, and the margin left, and can also do it by using a shorthand, giving all the other size in one by not specifying the top, the right, the bottom, or the left. So when you indicate, let's say 1 2 3 4, the 1 goes to the top, the 2 goes to the right, the 3 goes to the bottom, whilst the 4 goes to the left. Okay. You can also sometimes, okay, see some programmers writing the left and the right should be 10 pixels, whilst the top and the bottom should have 20. In this case, it will be written in this way. So 10 20. The moment you see it this way, that means that top and bottom are going for this, okay, whilst the left and right are going for the other one. So the first one indicates the right and left, whilst the second one indicates the top and then the bottom. And again, just like padding, child elements do not inherit. Okay, it doesn't inherit the property of its parent element. It doesn't. This is what I'm going to use to explain the margin. I'm going straight into my text editor, and we are going to see this thing in action. Now this is the text editor. Now in my HTML section, I've added these two paragraphs which we use in the padding. So I'm going to write rules for them to explain what margin is. So this is the rule I'm going to use. I want the width of 200, border of 2 pixels, and I want it solid and a color, and then the padding of 10 pixels. And now in the other paragraph with the class of example, I'll give a margin of 20. So you see the separation between two of these boxes. Let me save it, Ctrl S. Let me go to my browser and then refresh. Let me scroll down. Now you can see this is the padding. From the top of the box to the letters here is what we call the padding, while the spaces between these two particular boxes is the margin we are leaving. Okay, now we are going to centering content. If you want to center a box on a particular page, you can set the left margin and the right margin to auto. In order to center a box on a page, you need to set the width of the box. Okay, otherwise it will take up the full width of the page. Once you have specified the width of the box, setting the left and right margins to auto will make the browser put an equal gap on each side of the box. This centers the box on the particular page, let's say the entire body page, within the element that the box sits inside. In order for this to work in older browsers, particularly Internet Explorer 6, the element that the box sits in should also have a text alignment property with its value set to center. The text alignment property is inherited by child element, okay, not like the margins. The alignment is inherited, but the margins and the padding is not inherited. You therefore also need to specify the text align property on the centered box if you do not want the text inside it to be to also be centered. Now this is the code, the HTML of the entire body, and this is the CSS of the entire body. I'll try and do this in the text editor. Now this is my text editor. I'm going to maintain these two paragraphs, but I will make some changes in the CSS, okay, to explain centering of the box. So let me enter this now this is for the entire body, so let me comment the entire CSS out. Okay, so I've commented all the above CSS rules just to explain the centering. Okay, so this my I'll align it to the center, the entire body, and then for the paragraph I'll give it a width of 300 pixels, padding of 50, border of 20 with a solid color around it. I'll also give the second paragraph, which is the one with the class name of example. I'll give it a margin, okay, of 10, and I'll give it auto. That means I should put equal width on the left and the right, and then I'll align it to the writings of the paragraph to the left. Let me save this and then go to my web page and refresh. Okay, when I refresh, I'm going to see this at the center. That is it. This is exactly what I want to do. This is what I want to explain. Okay, this is exactly what I want to explain. Putting the content in the center. Now look at the text. The text is in the center of the box. Center of the box, aligned to the left. This is in the center. My audio is in the center. This paragraph is in the center. It's auto. It's also auto. Look at the top and down, same width. It's exactly what I wanted to explain. So I had to comment out all my other styles. Okay. Now we are also going to look at the change inline and then block. So the display property, okay, allows you to turn an inline element into a block level element. We told you inline element happens within a particular element, whilst the block also starts on a what? On a new line. But with the display, it allows you to turn the inline to a block and turn the block into inline. Okay. It can also use to hide an element from the page. It takes about 4 properties. 1 is inline, 2 is block, C is inline block, and the other is none. With the inline, this causes the block to act like an inline, whilst the block causes the inline to act like a block level element. In the inline block, inline-block allows a block level element to flow like an inline while retaining other features of a block level element. For the none, it hides an element from the page. In this case, the element acts as though it is not on the page at all. Okay. If you use this property, which is the none, it is important to note that inline boxes are not supposed to create block level elements. I'm going to give you an example, and the example you are going to see each item in the list. Okay, and each item in the list treated as a block level element. Okay, but the rule of the list element indicates that they should be treated as inline element, which means they will sit alongside each other rather than appearing on new line. This technique is often used to create navigation for a site. And in this example, a margin has been added to the right of each of the items to separate them out. The rule that applies to the list element whose class is coming soon has been hidden. So coming soon has been hidden as if it was not on the page at all. Let's go to our text editor. I am going to explain this. Now you see, this is an unordered list. It has some list items: home, products, coming soon, which we are going to hide, about, contact. Now coming soon is going to vanish completely on the page, even though it is written in our codes. Okay, it will not show at all on the browser, whilst the other list items without having any class, those ones are going to be inline and have a margin of it has a margin of 10. You know, technically a list item is supposed to be a block level element. But because we have indicated, given it a property of inline, it's going to act as though it's what? An inline element. Once we we hide the coming soon, which is the services. Now, this is my text editor, and I've indicated the HTML code, or the list of items. Okay, and I've given the services a class of coming soon. So in my CSS, I'm going to hide the coming soon. Okay, I'm going to hide the coming soon while I make the others an inline, even though they are list items, and list technically is a block level element. Let me refresh my browser and see what is happening. Yes, so you can see it here. Mostly it is used for navigation bars, okay, or nav bars. Let me put it on top, so it's move them from this place and then take it up to the beginning of the page, right after the head. Let me put it here. Okay, and I save it and I refresh. So my nav bar should be now on top, over the home, product, about, and contact as a nav bar. I centered all these elements. Okay, now the next thing we are going to look at is visibility. Now, to hide box, we use the visibility property, okay, from users, but it leaves a space where the element would have been. Okay, in this case, even though we are hiding the box, but it's going to leave the space over there. This property can take two values, which is hidden. This hides the element, whilst visible shows the element. If the visibility of an element is set to hidden, a blank space will appear in its place. Okay, instead of the element appearing, a blank space will appear. And if you do not want a blank space to appear, then you should use the display we used earlier and give it a none. And then you must also note that anyone can view the content of any element whose visibility property has been set to hidden by viewing the page source. Now that's one of the first things we did. You right click on a web page and you go to view source. Okay, view source. Now to my text editor. Now instead of using the display, let me use visibility. Visibility. One of the reasons I like VS Code. And then the visibility, I would say hidden. Now when you are using hidden, I told you it is going to leave a blank space. Okay, so if you don't need a blank space, then which means we should go back to our display. Okay, but if you want to use visibility, just to explain visibility, you bring visibility and give it hidden. Let me save this and then check on my browser. You can see the space, a blank space created here. Okay, so it is technically not a good practice, though. The best practice is to use the display and give it a value of none. This brings us to the end of chapter 13, which is boxes. See you in the next lesson.